Welcome back to our Carolina cooking segment. Today, as you can see, we're in the great outdoors. You know, it's late fall or early winter time, and a lot of people may not consider getting the grill out and scrubbing it off and pulling some good homegrown meat on the grill. Well, today we're going to do that. We're going to bring some pork chops out in just a minute, and all the fixings that you might want to consider during this holiday time. When it's cool outside or cold where you may be, some good soul food that'll warm up your heart and warm up your soul and stomach as well. We're here today with Jim Griffin. Hi, Jim.
Hey, Reggie.
Jim is our National Legislative Coordinator for the South Carolina Farm Bureau Federation. He represents our farmers and all of our members through his relationships with the folks in Washington, D.C., as well as around South Carolina, and helps keep farmers in business by making sure laws are passed that are friendly to farmers and landowners and whatnot. So thank you for all you do in that regard. Jim, tell us what you got for us today.
Well, we're going to have some pork chops on the grill in a little bit, but right now we've got, we're cooking up some okra rice, and we've got collards in the pot over here, and we got some black-eyed peas over here.
All right.
So we're going to finish up the okra rice. We've sauteed some onions and okra in that big old pot, and some rice, and we're going to dump in some tomatoes and some bacon.
All right.
And we're going to stir it all together.
First?
I'll put that tomatoes in there.
All right.
And I'll stir this.
Now, it's true that all these ingredients are South Carolina grown.
Absolutely.
You want all of them in there?
Except, yeah, all of them's good. Except for the rice. We do grow some rice in South Carolina,
Right.
but this is not some of ours.
Okay.
But everything else is South Carolina grown.
And that's a big campaign that we're running in South Carolina now that Farm Bureau helps support and help get the money for through our legislature.
You can put some of that bacon
All right.
in there too, please, sir. Right on top. That's great.
Oh, that's a beautiful looking dish too.
We also serve this in the South, this kind of dish around New Year's, where we'll have the greens supposedly bring you lots of dollars,
Okay.
and the peas bring you lots of coins, and the pork brings you lots of good eating. So that's the tradition.
You know, one of the reasons that we got Jim involved with this segment especially, I've been fortunate enough to be on some of our legislative events where Jim's brought the grill out and has cooked and has gotten pork chops, and in a minute you'll see just how thick those pork chops are. I have never been able to cut into a pork chop with a plastic fork and knife and just slice right through it, so tender and so nice. So tell us a little bit about, before we go to the grill, a little preparation time involved with the pork chops.
We brine the pork chops. We brine the pork chops with a gallon of water and a cup of salt, a little bit of sugar, and some garlic, and whatever else you want to put in there, bay leaves, peppercorns, whatever, and you put that on with about an inch or inch and a half pork chop for 6 or 8 hours. Ooh, yeah. And it really keeps the moisture in and makes it
you
makes
could
it nice
do it.
again.
Could you do it the night before you were planning on cooking?
You could. You'd need to make your brine a little weaker.
Okay.
But that's easy to do.
Yeah, and that brine then breaks the meat down, and
it doesn't break it down so much. It just keeps the moisture in and keeps it nice and moist when you grill them. Center cut pork chops can get dry if you're not careful.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to cook them kind of quick, and we're going to bring them up to about 145 degrees and then let them rest a little bit.
Okay, sounds good. Well, tell us about your black-eyed peas and your collards.
Collards are locally grown, and they are, we always put our collards in some water and boil them just 5 or 6 minutes. We call that blanching, blanching or parboil them just a little bit, maybe 5 minutes. Pour that water off, and then all that's in there is just a little bit of ham, some beef broth, and some seasoning, and just a touch of butter.
Then your beans, did you start with dried beans?
Started with dried black-eyed peas, and all that's in there is a little bit of onion and bell pepper.
Okay.
And
so you used a little red and green bell pepper to give it a little color.
Right, and that's all that's in there, and a little seasoning. That's it.
Good deal. Good deal. Tradition at your house growing up for New Year's?
About the same thing we have here. A lot of times my mom would not grill pork, she would cook it in the oven. But we would still have the same, we'd have rice and red rice and black-eyed peas and collards, and we also would have hog jowl sometimes, which is kind of like country bacon kind of.
Yeah.
But that was a tradition too. I don't know where that came from, but we're not having that today.
Well, you know, you make a good point too about Mama cooking that pork in the oven. Just because we're here in beautiful South Carolina where the weather's not far from this, during the fall and winter months of the year. By the time people are viewing this, it very well could be feet of snow on the ground in
True.
some places of the country. So all this stuff really could be done in the kitchen. You don't have to. This isn't all grill food. You could easily take it in the house.
Sure.
And pork chops would do just as well in the oven. May have to tend to them a little bit.
Sure.
But,
or do a whole loin and cook it slow.
very good.
That'd be great.
All right.
It'd work great.
Well, that's great. Well, let's take a break and we'll go around to the grill in just a minute and put those pork chops on.
We're putting some oil on the chops.
What kind of oil you got?
This is canola.
Okay.
And then
Is
we're
there a
gonna.
preference?
I don't think it's canola, or I usually use canola or olive oil.
Okay.
And I'm gonna put some oil on there. Not a
Now,
whole lot.
when you went to a regular grocery store,
Right.
talked to the meat manager,
Right.
and what did you ask for to get these? You never see these kind of pork chops in the meat case.
You sort of have to ask for a extra thick cut center pork chop.
All right.
And you want it to be sort of like a T-bone steak. You want the tenderloin over here, and then the what would have been in a steak, tenderloin, and the New York strip. So you got two. This is very tender, and this is not quite as.
Right.
And that's what you ask for. And sometimes they do it right, and sometimes they don't. You know, you have to really insist that they give you what you want. We've got a fellow down in Charleston that makes this rub. It's called Buster's Rub, and it's my very favorite. It does good on these pork chops.
What kinds of things are in there?
Some garlic and pepper and paprika and different seasonings.
Oh.
And we'll turn these over and gonna do them on the other side.
Man.
And then we're gonna cook them kind of hot and quick.
Yeah.
And we want to get them to about.
Same thing on these?
Yes, sir, please. We want to get them to about 145 degrees. I got a thermometer over there. We'll check.
Now that's important, especially with pork, isn't it?
Well, we have really safe pork in America, but you still want to cook it pretty done. And we'll cook it about 145, which would be considered kind of rare for pork. But then you let it sit. That's the key. If you cook it too done all in the beginning, it'll dry out. So you want to cook it and let it sit a little bit.
Okay, I got you.
Okay. All right.
Nice sized grill. Now, what did you do to prepare your grill, Jim?
We need to clean it a little bit and oil it up and get our charcoal going. We want a good hot fire. And then we'll use a two-stage fire. As you can see, there's a hot spot in the middle where the fire is, and then once they brown good, we're going to move them over to a place that's not quite as hot and let them rest a little bit. A lot of times I'll start with a regular charcoal or regular briquette, but when you get ready to add, if you needed to add charcoal, I use a cowboy or a natural charcoal to throw in there because it has no binders or anything. It's all natural, and you put it in there and you get no off flavors, and it burns really hot. It's more expensive, so I don't use it all the time.
Do you put a type of wood in there as well?
If I'm smoking, I do. I'll put hickory or pecan or wild cherry or some of each, and we could put some in here. But when we're cooking them as fast as these cook, I don't worry too much about it. But if we were doing a whole loin or a chicken, we cooked it real slow. We would do it like that. So we're gonna close it up, and we'll let it cook a little bit, and then we'll flip it.